Alrighty, hey everyone. So this is going to be a little tutorial on how to easily set up your grid systems. Well, easily. We'll see how it goes. So we're gonna kind of randomize it a little bit, make it doable. But I'm in InDesign, and we're gonna try and create a grid system that is kind of set to our baseline grid. And so we'll go over some of those tools that you might have missed in class. So I'm just going to start with a basic size here. So 8.5 by 11 is fine. 1 page is fine. We'll keep it all good here. It's just kind of the standard stuff here. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Yeah, so now we have our image here, right? So the big thing with this process here is that we want to have a baseline grid. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to leave everything kind of as is. You can make some really interesting and fun graphics with your margins. Playing around with your margins is a really important tool, and if there's time maybe I'll do a quick one with that as well, but for now we'll just leave it as is. I'm just going to make a text box here all the way down to the bottom, and I'll fill this with placeholder text. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to say fill with placeholder text right here. So that should give us our placeholder text. Looks good, looks fine. Yeah, we'll go from here. So now what I want to start thinking about is how can I make this better, right? Make it look good. So I'm going to go ahead and start changing our size of our stuff. So I'm going to select all that, and I'll just drop my size down, maybe 8, right? 8 is a good standard sort of size for a font. It's by no means like necessary for things to be 8, but it's a good place to start. And I'll also play around with my leading. So the leading right here is the difference between these two. Is that this one changes the distance between your lines. So I'm going to crank that up till it looks good, right? So like 10, 11, 12, someplace in there is probably going to be fine. I'll stick to 11 for now. So that looks good, right? I'm fine with that. I'm going to fill this all the way though with my placeholder text. So right click on there again, and then fill with placeholder text. So that brings me right down to the bottom. Great. So the next thing that we got to do is we got to start changing around our baseline grid. So right now, our baseline grid, we can activate it by just clicking off. So I'm just clicking on no swipe space here. And if I click on this little button right here where it says baseline grid under rulers and grids, so we got a regular ruler right that I'll toggle off, our ruler up at the top, and then we have our baseline up at the top, right beside it. So if I click on that, we get these blue lines that appear. Now, obviously, this looks pretty bad, right? Like our lines are not, sticking to that at all. The reason for that is that our baseline grid is likely set to 12 points, and our leading is set to 11. So it doesn't quite fit the way that we want it to fit. So to make that better, what we got to do is we got to go to our preferences. So we can do that by going to Edit, and then all the way down to the bottom here, we have our preferences, and our shortcut for that is Control K right here. So we'll probably go into our preferences several times, and so we want to have that kind of easily accessible. So what I'll do here now is I'm going to go into my grids, and I want to start playing around with my baseline grid. This is where it says baseline grid right here. You can change the color if you'd like. It's not necessary, but if you'd like to, you can. I want to start my baseline grid at 0. And in fact, notice how it said, let's exit out, oops. Try that again, Control K. Notice how it says 0.5 inches. I want this to be at points. So before I change this, it might be a good idea to go into our units and increments. And right here, we can change our units and increments from inches or picas or whatever you have to points. It's much easier to work when it's set to points like that. So I'll do that first. Now when I go back to my grids, it's still set to that. So maybe I'll hit OK. And I'll try that again, Control K. Go into our grids, and now it's set to points. So I want this to start at 0, right at the top of the page. Right? Very, very top. Relative to the top of the page, looks good. And our increment, this is the critical part right here. We want this to be set to 11 because our leading is set to 11. Great. Our view threshold, this is how far we want to zoom in or out. I usually set this to 12.5. Again, it doesn't really matter what it's set to. That's fine. Good. And can't really see it. This is my OK button. I'll hit OK. And now this looks a little better, right? Now it's at least kind of sort of starting to fit with my stuff. But I got to do some more changes here first. First change I want to do is I'm going to click on my text box here. And I'm going to scroll down all the way down. If you don't see it, you'll have to scroll down to where it says paragraph. All the way down. And if you don't see all this extra stuff, you might have to click on these three little dots here. And that'll give us our paragraph options. So this is all our paragraph styles, and you can change like indents and different things like that. But the big thing that I want to do is this button right here, and this is our align to baseline grid. When I click on that, it's going to snap everything down just a little bit so that all of our lines are right on the line. Great, starting to look pretty good now. I like the way we're seeing things. But there's also these problems of like, ooh, look, this is not aligning to my grid here either. So that's not great. So let's click off again, just click in the white space. And let's adjust our margins. So we know that these are 11 pixels, right? So this is right now set to, 36 pixels. Not great. So let's change this. We can go down to like 33. Now that pink line is now set to be right on that line, which is good. We like that. Looks great. So we might need to scroll down to the bottom, and it might be the same reason that we need to change things here as well. It's actually pretty good here. But if we wanted to change it so that it's a little bit different, what we can also do is click this little chain, and when it's a little cross through that chain, we can also start playing around with changing that so that it doesn't change everything. So maybe I want to bring that up to 44. Let's just see how it goes. We might end up changing that. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. Great. So now things, my baseline grid and my margins are starting to come together. Right? Looks good. So what we're ready to do now is start working with our actual grids. Our baseline grid is going to be like the standard, the unit that we use to start. But when we're actually doing stuff, we want to do it well. So I'm going to delete my text because I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to start playing around with my grids. So the grid, to find your grid, is you're going to go into Layout, and you're going to go down to where it says Create Guides. Clicking on that, you'll have this Create Guides tab here. And there's a couple really, really important things that we want to have set here. First thing that we want to set is that our gutter, the gutter is the space between columns. We want to set both of these to 11. The reason for that is because our baseline grid is 11, so we want to make that match. Second thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that our fit guides are set to margins. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're just working inside this pink space here, not the whole page. And now what I can start doing is I can start creating these guides, right? And eventually, hopefully, sometimes you get lucky and things look good right off the top. You can see how these blue lines, the bright blue lines are kind of matching with my darker blue. That's good, right? So that means that we did a good job. We got kind of lucky here making it fit. And columns, when I make my columns, I usually do 12. The reason for that is that that's a good number for dividing things in half, right? So we could have 6 columns across and be totally in half, or we could do 3 columns, right? 3, 6, 9, or 4, right? So it's an easy way to kind of divide. I almost always use 12 unless I'm doing something really weird and creative. So because this is set to 6 and we know that that fits, we could also try, if we wanted to make it a little more different, right? We could see what other possibilities. 11 seems to work. Interesting. Right, is 12? No. So I'm going to stick with 6 for now, but I know that there's other options that I can use to make that work. So we kind of lucked out there a little bit. I'll hit OK. So there, now I have a grid that looks pretty good, right? Things are matching up really nicely. And if you're having trouble seeing that, maybe I'll just quickly change the color of my baseline grid, just so you can see it a little bit easier. I'm going to change my baseline grid from light blue, maybe to like burgundy, some other color, right? Just so you can see that a little bit better. Nice. So that's now, we can see that works for this page. Now what would happen if I changed this? let's just for kicks here, let's change this, my bottom here, to 55, for example, right? So I've moved my bottom margin up a little bit. If I wanted to, I could go in and I could say create guides, and maybe I'll remove my existing things. Whoa, that looks really crazy. And I want to have that set to 11 and 11. And when I start playing with this, it still might work, right? We might need to like finagle with it a little bit, but usually we can get one that works if it's set up well, right? So you can usually find one. So 13 works, right? But usually I just kind of go through until it matches kind of nicely with what I want it to look like. So maybe I'll go back down to 5. Actually 13 is kind of fun. Do 13. And I'll go to 12 here again. So now that I have this set up, I can like get rid of my baseline grid. I can turn this off. And now I have this lovely grid that I can use to work and start making my layout. If you are having trouble, like maybe you can click on your lines here, and you don't want to do that because this is kind of, you don't want to mess with this. A shortcut to make this kind of stick is Control, Alt, and then the semicolon. Okay, and that will like lock your grid in place. Another thing that you can do is if you want to get rid of your grid altogether, Control, semicolon, and that'll get rid of your everything, like all your grid lines, including your margins. So that's a nice way to kind of see what your design looks like as you're working on it. Okay, so now that we have our grid, let's start making some stuff. So what I can do is I'm just going to cover the whole thing here with text. So I've just got to make a text box over all of my margin, and I'll fill this with placeholder text. Okay, so it's a big, ugly thing. No one wants to read that. But now I can start playing with my columns and making this kind of like fit to a particular grid. Right? So if I wanted, say, a 3-column spread here, I could say, you know what, I want to have this little button here with a little red button there, and I can continue on with my spread. That little red button, right, and my text will continue. What happens if I wanted to, you know, I can change this around so that maybe I want this first one to be really low, right, or whatever, right? But now the point here is I can use my grid to line things up really nicely, including pictures, right? So if I wanted to boot in a picture here, maybe 2 or whatever, maybe I'll put it kind of like matching with this column here. I'll put one here. I just made a little, it's called a fill rectangle frame tool, so it's just a empty space. You can make a couple of those, right? So that's a nice way to kind of lay out where your things are going to go. And then I can just, I got some pictures here, right? I'll just take that and just plunk it in. Right, so I got one there, and I'll do another one right beside it. Nice. So now what I can do, if obviously that doesn't fit very good, I'll click on this, the little circle here, and right click, and there should be a thing in here, fitting, there we go. I can say I want this to fit proportionally, and it'll more or less kind of snap it back to where I want it to be. Fitting, fit proportionally. Right now I've got some photos in my design. I can of course like change this around, I can move it around. Let's add a title. Add a title, I'm just going to make that in one of these boxes here. Maybe this time I'll crank up the size of my text. Put it in title, name, whatever. Something like that. Might be a little big. Make that a little smaller. Something like that. And now that can also hang out inside my stuff, right? So that all is starting to look really nice. If you want to have your title or your basic paragraph stuff, because we changed this all, you can of course like change it all in here, right? Changing this around so that it all fits well within your like on your baseline grid. This is little button here again, making sure that it all is fitting how we want it to look. So that's how we can use our baseline grid to kind of create a really good looking grid. So yeah, that's all for now. Maybe I'll do another one on how to kind of make it a little bit more interesting using our margins in another video. All right, see you guys in a bit.